Hello, this is Brian Tatler from Diamond Head. Check out the new live album, Live and Electric, and you're watching John the Ninja.
Ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing? It is John the Ninja. I'm super excited. And much like my journey, this individual started perfectly, just like I did. But for me, it was AC/DC and Black Sabbath with Paranoid and High Voltage. For this individual, he actually bought his albums. It was Led Zeppelin 2 and Machine Head by Deep Purple. And of course, his favorite band is the Mighty Zepp, and he's been inspired by Richie Blackmore, Tiny Iommi, Michael Schenker. But if we only knew the impact this man would have on the new wave of British heavy metal. Actually, it was termed heavy rock or hard rock, depending on your take. But I digress. This man was inspired to play guitar after hearing Highway Star by Richie Blackmore and his brother, who would take him to concerts. The man seen, again, AC/DC and Black Sabbath, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath tour, AC/DC on the Let There Be Rock tour. He's even open for AC/DC. But seeing them perform, seeing Zeppelin and meeting Robert Plant and all his idols, he wanted to play guitar. And no matter what came in his way, even if he had to teach guitar or when he dropped out of school after forming his band and working as a mechanic, this man was hell-bent on being a guitar player. And in 1976, he actually started that band, taking their name from the Phil Manzarek album. They named themselves Diamond Head. And the individual I'm speaking of is Brian Tatler. And when you know that name, you know he's the big heavy hitter and one of the monstrous riff makers, inspiring the Big Four and countless others. So today we are here to speak about Diamond Head's latest offering, their live album, Live and Electric, out July 11th. Good sir, how are you today?
Wow, that's quite an introduction. Thank you very much. I'm well. I'm enjoying the sunshine. It's sunny here in Stourbridge. It's been warm for a while. And yeah, that's quite an introduction. Thank you very much. I'm very flattered.
No problem, sir. I know we have a love for something. We're both intertwined in the world of sci-fi, and I'm incredibly curious on how you got into it because you named movies that are very close to my heart. You said Lucy, you said Gravity, you said The Fifth Element, and Aliens. I just wanted to know how you actually found sci-fi.
Yeah, it is my favourite genre of films, and I will always watch anything that's sci-fi just to see. But I think it started in 1969 when my family took me to see 2001: A Space Odyssey at the local cinema, and I didn't really understand it, but I thought it was amazing, and it left me with lots of questions. Uh, and I've loved it ever since. I think it's one of the greatest sci-fi films ever made. So yeah, that's where it started.
What about Dune did you love? Because we know you guys wrote Sleeper with that movie in mind, and even the remake has been deemed a masterpiece, let alone the original and the book. What about Dune just captivated you?
I liked the film, absolutely, don't get me wrong, but our singer Raz was particularly obsessed with it, and he wanted to write that lyric, "The Sleeper," with Shai Hulud and all that, and so that's what he did. And it would have been great if we could have got the track into the film in somehow, on the end credits or something. But I think you've got to be very well connected to the director or the producer or something like that. And we didn't have any in to that movie, but it's a great movie. And I even liked the first one, even though it was very strange. But yeah, that's the connection anyway. That's why.
I wanted to know if you liked The Matrix because the connection you stated in the past, you guys were trying to do what Zeppelin did, create these strong songs, these epics, things that have staying power. And when I look at the countless musicians that inspired me to play, that were inspired by you, it just when I found out you like sci-fi, I just thought of The Matrix. And I kind of held you to this character of Morpheus, of being the guy. He's not the hero of the story, but he's the hero for the hero. He's the guy that inspires the people. I wanted to know if you ever made that connection, if you feel like that's your place in heavy metal, because you are at the forefront of being so important for thrash and the genres that come after it.
No, I've never considered that. I think you've got a very active imagination, but it's a great film. I think we got the idea to do epics from the bands we were listening to in the 70s. I still think the 70s was my favorite era for music. And so you've got bands like Zeppelin, Sabbath, Purple, all doing long songs. And then you've got bands like Rush as well, and Genesis and Pink Floyd. And so I think we were taking on board the idea of not just a short poppy single or like the punk rock bands were doing short 3-minute sort of statements. We like the idea of doing an expansive song that lasted 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes. And I think we got that idea from some of the bands I just mentioned. And Rainbow were a big band at the time, and they'd have something like Eyes of the World or Stargazer or something, and it would all go into our melting pot, and we'd try and write the greatest song of all time. We'd at least have a go at trying to write it.
Something I love about Diamond Head, this is personally for me, is I think the slower songs, I can hear the influence. You've mentioned liking the poppier bands too. You're not reserved and like, oh, it's just rock all the time. You also like ABBA and you love Queen and Pink Floyd. We're going to have to talk about Dark Side of the Moon. I'm a Wall guy. Dark Side of the Moon, great single, but together I was like, ooh, that's weird. But you stated when you were in the portion of your career where you were doing cover bands, you were working, and you actually were a guitar teacher. It said it forced you into the theory. And then knowing the theory now has improved your ability to write. When was that moment? I actually literally had this last, like maybe 6 months ago, where I was playing music and it was like something in my mind kind of broke, like a martial arts board. And now the concepts of guitar are just flowing out of me and it's all making sense. Is that kind of how it happened for you?
I wish it was, but no, I don't think so. I think, it was a sort of necessity to do guitar lessons. But I did learn a lot from doing it, because I was getting kids coming along who wanted to know theory and wanted to learn certain songs that I didn't know. So I'd have to learn stuff all the time in order to teach it. So I learned, like I'd never learned the modes, for example, and I got into that. And every little detail seemed to be important. Like they'd want to know, how do you hold your guitar pick? And what's the best position for your left hand, and exercise, and do you warm up, do you play this, do you do that? So there was so much detail that I probably hadn't thought about until I started teaching myself, and I spent 10 years doing that, and I'm sure I learned a lot of tricks and technique that I applied to my own playing and my own writing and when constructing a guitar solo. But I had been doing it since 1976, so there's a lot of experience there already.
I love the slower songs for Diamond Head, and that's where I really think your solos strike. I know you guys covered Immigrant Song, and that's a solo that's been widely praised as well. Do you have a comfort zone? Because in the essence of Diamond Head, you want to play the faster, the harder rock songs. That's what brings the crowd. That's what you get for the live events. But when you go into the slower songs, that's where I feel like that's when you, as the soloist, not just the riff maker, that's where you get to shine. Do you have a pocket where you prefer?
I've noticed it's better to have some keys underneath the guitar solo. If you're just playing over one key all the time, some songs are just E, 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 and you've got to work out a solo over that, and that's quite challenging. Whereas if you're playing over good chord changes, for example, Stairway to Heaven is like an A minor G F, and that's brilliant to solo over. So I try and do that. It don't always work, because sometimes you just need, oh, well, we'll just go into that riff for the solo over that riff. But if you can construct a chord change underneath the solo that's complementary, then you can get good results. I think my default setting would be blues, but I'm always trying to expand on that a little bit and not be too stuck in one style.
One argument me and my friend have had, because you stated that you wrote Am I Evil trying to mimic Symptom of the Universe by Sabbath. At least at the time you were trying to make heavier, and we go back and forth. That's his favorite Sabbath song. I think Iommi's got other songs that are just a little bit heavier, a little bit groove. So we wanted to know, what is your definition of a heavy song? I like the darker sounding, the slower, the
Right.
anticipation. But it seems that everyone likes heavy as fast. There's a strong argument. I think "Set My Soul on Fire" maybe one of the. It's probably your heaviest song to me for my
Okay.
definition. How would you define heavy in music in the connotation of what you've performed?
Um, I think I think a good heavy riff is normally quite grinding, can be slow. Like with Am I Evil, it works at a half time and then at a sort of normal time. Um, but I also like fast songs, and I can remember hearing Exciter by Judas Priest about 78 when that came out. And for the time, that was a very fast song. So we we would set ourselves challenges. We'd think we'd listen to say Motorhead, and we think, oh, that's fast. Bomber or Overkill or something. And so we'd have a go at that. We'll see if we can do a fast song. And I think between bands like Sabbath, Judas Priest, and Motorhead, they were pretty much as heavy as it got in the 70s. So we would be looking to go heavier, go faster, go darker if possible. And I think kids still do that. For the past 40 years, heavy metal has gone that way, heavier, faster, darker. And um, I'm happy playing fast songs. I'm happy playing slow songs. It's just how good is the riff really, and how well does it work with the drums?
Love that. That's a better definition than I had.
Thank you.
Enter the Void. That's my Sabbath. Like, ooh,
Oh,
this
it's
is
brilliant.
yeah.
I love that album, Master of Reality. I think that's my favorite Black Sabbath album.
You mentioned Judas Priest. All the idols that you've met of mine and yours, and again, I always think of the story between you and Robert Plant, and he wished you guys good luck when he signed for you guys. But
Uh-huh.
another figure in heavy metal that I absolutely adore is KK Downing. And when I
Yeah.
when I thought of when I thought of your story and his story, I was just like, you guys are like so intertwined with the importance
Yeah.
you have. And Sinner's a slept on album. I wanted to know if you've ever gotten to have conversation with KK. Would you write with him? If you ever had that, say, the conversation with Priest.
I've never had the opportunity to write with any member of Priest, but that would be great. Um, I got the opportunity to write with Tony Iommi on the 92 album, 93 album, Death and Progress. But yeah, I've met KK a few times. There's a venue not far from where I live in Wolverhampton called KK's Steel Mill. Yeah, so I've met him a few times over the years, and yeah, he's a nice guy. And we've done festivals together as well. We did Sweden Rock, the Time to Rock in Sweden, where KK's Priest were on and Diamond Head were on. So we hung out backstage and chatted. Yeah, nice guy.
When it came to writing, Iommi and Dave Mustaine, I think you have this spirit much like the Carlos Santanas, the Eric Claptons, and they do too, where your music does something to an artist and they expand upon it. I wanted to know during those writing sessions, because I know you and Dave weren't able to complete the songs, but how did you compare Dave and Iommi, and what was your feeling? Did you feel that inspiration just spiritually when you were writing with them? It's like, oh, you know what? There's just a little something extra. I always think of how when I play along with John Frusciante of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I all of a sudden I can solo without even thinking. And that's the
Right.
type of inspiration they give us when we come up with our riffs or any music we write.
What I remember about Tony Iommi was I went over to his house in Solihull and I got cassettes with some of my rips on, and I walk into his, huge house, and he got exactly the same. He just got a drawer full of cassettes with his rips on, and they didn't sound any better than mine. And we just listened to each other's, and I'd go, "Oh, I like that," and he'd do the same. "Oh, I like that one," and we pieced together a song called Starcrossed, and that was a fantastic experience for me to work with one of my heroes. Um, but we didn't get to solo or jam or anything like that. It was more just a case of write a song and get the job done. With Mustaine, it was we never even got in the same room together. It was a case of we'd talk on the phone, then I would start making demos. I had a little 8-track digital Roland recorder at home, so I would use a drum machine. I would use a pod and just put ideas down, and then I'd send them to Dave Mustaine on CD, and then he would get back in touch and say, I like this one, I like that one, I like this one, and then we made some plans, you know, to do this and do that, but then it all came to nothing because he slept on his arm one time. I don't know if you remember that story. He slept on his arm, and he couldn't play anymore for a while, so he sold all his gear and he stopped Megadeth, didn't he, in about 2000 and 2001, something like that. So I was just told that he can't do the album and it's not going to happen, and so that was that. But at least I'd written these songs. I'd written about 30 songs, 32 songs, and I thought, well, at least I've done that. It's give me a kick in the pants to go and do something, and then I've been able to use this material on various Diamond Head albums as we've moved forward. So it was a real you know, good move really to do that. Yeah.
I always wanted to ask, what happened to Dave in his career? Your brother, I hope that's his name correct. I stated it correctly. You know, so inspiring. Did he continue? Was he proud of you achieving what you've achieved? Were you able to bring him on tour with you anytime? Like, hey, meet this person, or please jam with us on stage, man. What happened for his music career?
He was very, very encouraging. It was always good to go to and bounce ideas off, and he would give me fantastic feedback. But he wasn't like a rock player. He was at first, but he was mainly doing covers. There'd be local bands where he'd play guitar and sing. Then he became a Christian, and he got into the church, and he'd swap it for acoustic guitar, and he would play, you know, Christian songs, Jesus songs. So he did that, and he never really went back to the rock and roll lifestyle. But he would come to some gigs, and he would listen to my demos, and he would always give me great feedback. So yeah, he was a big part of my growing up, and probably the main reason I learned to play the guitar, because he actually had a guitar in the house and could play it. So that rubbed off on me. If he'd have been a drummer, I might have been a drummer. I'm glad I'm a guitarist.
Yeah, move over, Satan. All right, Jesus got this one. All right, that's why we have heavy metal. we have to hit the live album, man. What a fantastic offering you guys gave us. I know that it's been since 2005 since you guys had a live album, and now with technology you're able to do that. What was it like going back and hearing those 14 performances and picking songs? Because I'm not gonna lie to you, I was listening to Dead Reckoning, I was like, this is the fun song on the album. That must have been fun going through each and every one. What was that process like, as far as like, hey, this is the song we have to get right? Which one did you really have to fight over? Like, yeah, that's the one from that night.
Really, you've got to make sure you've got a good version of Am I Evil, and we've 14 versions of Am I Evil on that on the hard drive. So we'd listen through and eventually have to settle on one. There might have been, say, 5 that we liked, but eventually you have to go, that one's better because it's got a better vocal, it's the timing's better, the solo's better, there's something about it. So we'd do that. We didn't have the luxury on every song. Like, we had to change the set because we were doing like a 40-minute set opening for Saxon. We had to put different songs in at different nights in order to build it up to a 12-song set, because they're long songs. So we were doing about 8 songs opening for Saxon, and so we would slot in Dead Reckoning, Sweetness, and etc. And that's the way we did it. So we'd have some songs we'd have about 3 or 4 takes of, and then the big songs like The Prince and Heat of the Night, and that we'd have 14 versions to listen to, which which is a bit daunting, but it was a job that had to be done, and I was happy to take on that mantle.
What song off the album would you want to present to people first that aren't necessarily the Diamond Head fans? Like everyone, like, you know, everybody knows the Prince and Am I Evil, but I'm talking like the deep cuts, because personally, like I said, I love Death by Design, but Sweet and Innocent was that song I've been directing people to. Like, hey, if you really want an idea of how good these guys are, that's the tune.
I'm not sure. I might play somebody Bones. I always think that works well live, and I like In the Heat of the Night as well. That always goes over well live. But yeah, I mean, we've never done a live album with some of these songs. Songs off the last couple of albums have never been on a live album, and Dead Reckoning's never been on a live album. So it's nice to have a few deep cuts. I deliberately didn't use certain songs that we often play, like Lightning to the Nations or Play It Loud or Streets of Gold. I deliberately didn't use them because I've been on, you know, multiple live albums. So let's try and freshen it up.
And was there another particular approach like that you also wanted to do with the presentation of this? Because it's so monumental when people get to hear the band live. It's different from the recording. Even if you can make it exactly sound the same, there's still that element, there's spirit. So how did you try to exuberate that feeling? Because with the band, with the current lineup, there's a lot more energy for Diamond Head, and it's been spectacular to hear as well as see.
Yes. Well, it's just a case of it's a great lineup. So we wanted to capture this lineup, and we just thought that's a great way to do it, is to record a live album while we've got the opportunity. And I'm glad we did, because we haven't done any live shows since 2023. So this is a nice thing for the fans, and you know, it's cool. It sounds great. I'm hoping people are going to like it.
I always end these with the most important question. What's the best piece of advice somebody has posed to you? Sometimes people tell us jokes like, hey man, rent the tour bus, don't buy one. Sometimes they're serious, like sit down, let me tell you something. And then, you know, brush your teeth, or, you know, never do this ends up being like a guiding mantra. Is there something that readily comes to mind that you remember somebody telling you that you've always held on to?
Well, normally when people ask for advice about how do I do a band or what should I do or this, that, I always say write songs is the best thing you could possibly do. I think you have to get good at writing songs, and that's fortunately what Diamond Head did. When we started in my bedroom, we didn't have the opportunity to do any gigs or, you know, go on tour with someone. All we could do is week after week, we would sit there with a cassette recorder and try and write songs, and then listen back and analyze them and go, that bit's not right, this bit's good, let's do this, let's do that. And so we wrote lots and lots of songs, and we got good at it by trial and error and patience and editing yourself. So I always say that. And I think it's good to just try and write every day if possible. If you're there with your phone, or, you know, I used to go straight to a cassette recorder, but I warm up every day, I practice every day, and occasionally I come up with a riff and you have to record it immediately. But at least you feel, right, I've written something today. And then I feel satisfied that, you know, the process has started. If you've written a riff, at least you've started a new song, potentially. Or you just have to be very picky and go through all your riffs and pick the best ones, you know.
Absolutely fantastic. Good, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Guys, that is Brian Tatler. Diamond Head is releasing Live and Electric July 11th. Also, don't forget, you can go to Diamond Head Official on Instagram, the same name on YouTube. And if you're lucky, you can try and check out his autobiography, Am I Evil? The Music, the Myths, and Metallica. There's only 1,000 prints out there, but we'll get that the next time. But good, sir, thank you so much for all that you've done. It truly was an honor, a blessing, and, you know, again, move over Satan. I can't express how spiritually thankful I am for this opportunity.
Thank you. Your research is fantastic. That's the most research into me that I've ever heard anybody do. Well done.
Much obliged. Everyone else, be smart, be mindful, rock on, of course. Send the lightning to the nations. Ninja out!
Hey.
Woo, baby, you listen to John the Ninja. Oh, your ears are about to go on a vacation. John the Ninja's got what you need.